Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we're going to be continuing up the British line. I've taken a bit of a break from that, well, up the heavy line should I say, and we're going to be looking at the tier 7, the Black Prince. Now, I do realise I've not done the actual Churchill 7 yet, but for gameplay tips, if you want to have a look at my British Bulldog review, because it is essentially the same tank. Yes, there are, slight differences. Very slight difference in the gun, but for gameplay tips, basically the British Bulldog. I will come back around to the proper Churchill 7 at some point, but I didn't see much point doing it right now. So anyway, here we are, yeah. British Tier 7 Heavy, the Black Prince. Continues with the ilk of the last couple in the line, so it is very slow, but it does have a reputation for being an incredibly tough tank. And it is, if you angle it properly and use it properly. If you go face on, you are going to get penned through the front of your hull, but you give it a bit of an angle, maybe stick your gun over your track, something like that sort of angle, and you can bounce quite a lot of shots. Even some up at close range when you're top tier, definitely medium range when you're sort of in a tier 8 match, a little bit further back. If you're in a tier 9 match, you want to be playing that supporting role. But it is a very good side scraper, so even in those tier 9 matches, if you can't get into a position in the supporting role, if you're on a town or a city map and you can get into a good side scraping position, you can really you can hold the choke point quite well on your own, because you do have a very good rate of fire, although it is low damage. And that does seem to be the thing with the British Heavies up until tier 9, is you are having to deal with, well, not having to deal, but you are dealing with medium tank guns on your Heavies. This is the quickfire 17-pounder, but it is essentially a medium tank gun. But let's actually get into it and have a look at the gun itself and the modules. Right, fairly simple grind. Oh, and don't forget also, for those of you that don't want to watch this, I do put a time code in the description. It doesn't always work on mobile devices, but at least it'll know, it'll give you an indication of where to actually sort of cycle through to. Yeah, like I say, not many modules, very simple grind. You start off with the Ordnance Quickfire 77mm gun, which is the top gun on the Churchill 7, and I think it's either on the Comet or the Cromwell. I think it's on the Comet actually as well, but anyway, there you go. So you're using the same gun that you've just been using on the Churchill 7, so you'll be very used to that. And it is a very similar playstyle. They do start off with a very poor 350 horsepower engine, which gives you a shocking power to weight ratio. You will struggle with hills, and you will be very slow, so you've got to pick your route properly, as you do with the Churchill 1, the Churchill 7. Any of the ATs, anybody that's used to that will know about picking your route properly at the beginning of the match. And unfortunately, if you pick a direction and hardly any enemy tanks go there, you're just not fast enough to get back across the match, so you've got to really commit to it and just go for it and try and work your way around. You do have a slightly higher rate of fire and slightly better accuracy on this gun on the Black Prince, though. I think it's about 13 point something on the Churchill 7. It's 14.29 on here. 0.34 accuracy instead of 0.36 on the Churchill 7. But you do have the same aim time as the Churchill 7, and you're looking at, obviously, as you can see there, 148 damage pen, 140 damage, 208 for your premium, 38, 190 for your HE rounds. Now, hull traverse is 18, that is very slow. It only gets slightly better than that, which we'll look at in a minute. Your turret traverse, though, is 30 degrees a second with a 370 meter view range. That doesn't change. You don't have any upgraded turrets or anything else. You start off with the upgraded turret, so the stock turret is the only turret, and that's not bad because it is pretty good, but we'll look at the armour shortly. But yeah, even though your hull traverse is very slow, your turret traverse is actually pretty good for a heavy, and even if it is struggling to keep up with anything circling it, you start turning your hull as well, and you won't have any trouble keeping up with anything that is trying to circle you. And I would recommend turning your hull anyway, because it keeps you stronger armour towards them, because your rear armour is quite weak. But again, we'll look at that in a minute. Your next upgrade pack, or your sort of first upgrade pack, basically just gets you one of the first radios. You do have two on this. You keep your Ordnance Quickfire 77mm, you get some new tracks, and you get a new engine, so it nearly doubles in power up to 600 horsepower, but still is not a great power to weight ratio. But you are a little bit quicker on the acceleration, and hills are not so much of a grind. Now, your hull traverse does go up to 20 degrees with those tracks, but again, it's not going to break any records. But like I said before, with your hull turret traverse, you can track enemies quite easily with that. Your next upgrade pack just gets you the 17-pounder Mark 7 and the top radio for this, which increases signal range up to 700 meters. And the quickfire 17-pounder, 12 rounds a minute, 171 pen, 150 damage, 239 on your premium, 38 190 for your HE. Same aiming time, same accuracy as the 77mm. Now, like I say, this is a medium tank gun. You are going to have to keep the shots flying down range to actually do the damage. To give you an example, I mean the IS, which is the Russian tier 7, 175 pen, so slightly higher. But 390 damage, however, you've got a rate of fire of just over 4. So this is nearly 3 times the rate of fire. So for, well, each time that fires once, you nearly put 3 rounds down range at 450 average damage. So that rate of fire really does make that difference. And the 171 pen, I find that apart from in tier 9 matches, is perfectly adequate and will work without having to fire any premium ammo or, you know, maybe the odd one. In tier 9 matches, you will have to fire a few, however, because sometimes it's just not quite enough to get through. That's it for the packs, really. So there's not much to say about that. The quickfire 17-pounder is a good gun, but it is a medium tank gun. And you would play this similar to how you would play the Churchill. Well, not so much the Churchill 1, more like the Churchill 7. Churchill 1 has a very weak turret, unfortunately, when it's fully upgraded. This doesn't. And one of the tricks to it is just basically keep moving. Keep moving. It's very good at firing on the move, which is why I've put a vertical stabilizer on there. To improve that, put a gun rammer on it, just to improve that already good rate of fire. And I must admit, I'm tempted with either a spore liner, because RT will punish you. You have a big engine deck, and because he's slow anyway, a spore liner is not going to make any difference, but it will help with RT slightly. Possibly vents, just to improve everything overall, or maybe even a gun lane drive to improve the aim time. In fact, no, I wouldn't say the gun lane drive, I'd say optics, possibly. Either spore liner vents or optics is what I'd go for, but go off your personal experience. If you're not sure, stick those 2 pieces of equipment on, or a couple, have a run in it. If you keep getting punished by RT, go for a spore liner, that sort of thing. Now, skills wise, well, this is my wife's account that I've jumped on here. As you've probably noticed by now, the name is very different. It just saves me having to fork out another big wad of silver to buy another tank to get rid of it, seeing as she's grinding through it at the moment and nearly out of it now. But crew skills, 6th sense, definitely. You want repairs. I would say you want track mechanic on here as well as repairs, because you will get tracked a hell of a lot, because people get frustrated and not being able to pen you, so they will go for your tracks and try and sort of get around you. So yeah, track mechanic, repairs, 6th sense. Situational awareness might be a good one, just to try and improve your view range. It is slightly on the low side. Clutch braking, definitely, to improve the improve your traverse. When I can get my words out. Smooth ride would be a good one on this one, because it is always, you know, it is a good tank at firing on the move, because it is slow with the vertical stabilizers. And smooth ride, you can keep rolling and keep firing, and yeah, you'll have a good chance of hitting probably 7 or 8 out of 10 shots. Clutch braking would be useful to have on there as well, because your whole traverse is quite poor. And off-road driving, because your terrain resistances aren't brilliant. So just to sort of reiterate, you've got 6th sense, repairs, track mechanic, smooth ride, clutch braking, off-road driving. And then after that, to be honest, it's kind of what you'd really want. Snapshot might be useful, because of obviously turning your turret will keep your accuracy down. Armourer, you do get the gun damage quite a few times, because your turret is very tough, and again, people get frustrated, and you will get your gun damaged a couple of times. But I'd say that's about it, really, for the essential ones. Now, that small strip just underneath the gun, can you see it at the front of the turret? That seems to be new. It's not on the older pictures I've seen of it, and it is a small strip of spaced armour, but we'll look at that when we look at the modules in a moment. Supplies-wise, it's 175 for your armour piercing, 3,200 for your APCR, which is why I say, you know, only fire a few, but then again, you only need to. 75 for your HE, and it does carry a fair amount of ammunition at 84 rounds, so that's not too bad. Now into the modules. Well, your concealment, it's a big tank, so it's not great. It's 0.12 and 0.06, and that's stationary and moving. Engine wise, well, with the 600 horsepower engine, which is woefully underpowered, you only get a power to weight ratio of 12.01. With a forward top speed of 20 kilometers an hour. I said it was a tough tank, not a fast one. Reverse speed is quite poor as well at 12 kilometers an hour, and you've got a 20% chance of fire, although the engine isn't overly massive, but you do have those parts of the engine actually in the sides of the hull. Again, like the Churchills, the tracks actually go around the hull themselves. That's sort of, they're not stuck on the side like with most tanks. The hull does go into the middle of the tracks. With the 17 pounder on, you get a gun depression of -8 degrees, which is quite good actually. It's not as good as some of the other British vehicles, but it's definitely workable, and it's definitely a decent gun depression with an elevation of 20 degrees, which again is quite good. Well, good, it's about average, to be honest, 20 degrees, but more than workable. Tracks, as you can see, are quite solid, although you do have the hull in the middle of the track, but your terrain resistances aren't brilliant, which is why I said possibly off-road driving at 1.2, 1.4 and 2.3. Turret on top, where you'd expect it to be. Radio is in the back of the turret. Ammunition blocks, there are quite a few. They're in the side of the hull. In fact, they're in the bit that goes into the tracks, and there is one in the middle of the hull, and there's a good indicator of where those ammunition blocks actually are, and I'll show you that after we've had a look at the rest of the modules and the armour. Now, crew members. You've got the driver and assistant driver down in the front of the hull, and then up in the top you've got the commander in under his commander's cupola. You've got the loader and the gunner sat up there as well, and it is a very small commander's cupola and a very tough turret. If you've got enough pen, you can sometimes go through the cheeks of the turret, or occasionally through the slope just behind the gun at the front of the top of the turret as well, but again we'll look at that now. Anyway, armour values. Well, your basic figures, when I can press the right stick, your basic figures are 152 on the front of the hull, so it's not as much as the Churchill Mark 1, but again that is only in sort of one place that it gets that thicker armour. 240 on the front of your turret. You've got 95 on the side of your turret and your hull, and then 102 on the rear of your turret, but only 51 on the rear of your hull, which is a little bit poor. Now, actual armour figures. Well, 1 to 20 is the hull top, but it's the rear part of it, the top of the commander's hatch, the whole engine deck, and the front deck. And this is why Artie likes these things. It's a big old engine deck to try and hit. Your tracks also fall into the 1 to 20 category, as does the rear section of the hull floor. 21 to 30 is what I would possibly call the rear lower glacis. Falls into that category, but it does have a very, very good slope on it. The rear of the tracks, it's a bit tricky, this bit. That bit that you can see there on the back of, that's actually on the back of the hull, that small angle bit just inside the tracks. Like I said before, the tracks do go around the hull, so that is in there. So if you are shooting from the back, there is a chance you could get through the tracks into there, but you might as well just go for the back of the hull. And as you'll notice there, the floor of the front of the hull falls into that category, and a small section at the rear side of the hull, just behind the track wheel. I don't know if that's the drive wheel on the Black Prince, I think it is. So that small section right at the back there is weaker, so if you are struggling to get through the side of one of these things, there is a slightly thinner section towards the rear of the hull, which might be worth going for. I mean, to be honest, yeah, most equal tiers are not going to struggle to get through the side, but some of the lower tiers certainly might. And you can just see that strip that I was on about underneath the gun at the front of the turret as well. Now, 31 to 50 is the actual rear of the tank. Some small plates covering the rear drive wheels, and some bits and bobs towards the front as well as the rear part of the slope on the front of the turret, and a small strip just behind the gun mantle. Like I say, these are very, very tough frontally. They're very, very tough if they're angled properly, and they're incredibly tough at side scraping as well. And as for frontal weak spots, well, if you can't just punch straight through the front of the hull, which some tanks can, some can't, then to be honest, I think you're probably just going to have to try and get around behind it, or attempt to go for either the turret cheeks or the commander's cupola, but it is very, very small. Anyway, 51 to 70 You've got the sloped upper glacis leading back to the plate in front of the driver and assistant driver, as well as those sloped bits which are actually part of the hull. However, you can't see those because of the tracks and the track plates. And you've got the two thin strips that run from the upper glacis all the way along the side of the tank, and they are just, it's right down at the bottom of the hull, as you can see there. 71 to 90 are the two thin strips that run along the top side of the hull, so they are a little bit thinner. Not much use if it's angled properly, because the effective thickness will be very good anyway. But again, if you're struggling to get through it from the side, where the track covers are, they are a no-hit zone, so you can go through those and possibly hit that slightly thinner part of the upper hull side. 91 to 120, this is your 95. Well, it's the rear of the hull falls into that bracket, as does the commander's hatch itself. The sides of the turret and the actual hull sides themselves, they are not track plates in this, or bazooka plates, they are actual, well, like I say, it's the side of the hull. So that does fall into that category, and like I say, it gives it a very, very good side scraping ability, with it being 95mm. 121 to 160. Well, this is your 152 on the front of the tank, so it's the lower glacis, a small strip just at the front of the upper glacis, and the plate that the driver and the assistant driver sit behind, as well as the turret cheeks and the turret ring as well. Now, don't forget there's that spaced armour protecting that turret ring, because I do seem to remember getting penned there a couple of times. I just seem to remember that being a bit of a weak spot. I might be wrong on that one, and I might be getting confused with a different tank, but I'm quite glad of having that spaced armour there now. And like I say, the turret cheeks, the sides of the gun mantle, and the ring around the base of the gun where it goes into the gun mantle just before the breech there. And, oh yeah, the machine gun surround as well, the coaxial machine gun, I forgot about that one a bit. And then your 231, well, this is your 240 on your front of your turret, and it basically is just the front of the turret and gun mantle. So all that's left is 240mm. You do have seemingly a little bit of space behind the gun mantle, but I wouldn't recommend trying to put it through there. Like I say, commander's hatch, the slope on the front of the turret, if you've got enough power to get through, or your gun's big enough, there is a chance of a partial overmatching on that, so if you are struggling, it might be worth a try. But other than that, you've just got to try and get around the side of it if you don't have enough to get straight through the hull itself. Just try and flank it. And I have been studying this, trying to find a weak spot frontally. Like I say, if you can't just punch straight through the hull, and I have been struggling. There are, a few tanks in the game that just don't have any frontal weak spots. It's as simple as that. This could be one of those. If you know of one on the front of this, please leave it in the comments, because I am at a bit of a loss other than circling these. Like I say, if you can't just punch straight through it, just get around it if you can. Now, I'll try and give gameplay tips in-game, but apart from that, I think that's it. Oh, the ammo racks. Yeah, in the side, look, you see the track and the hatch. In between them, there's basically an ammo rack behind the hatch, there's one behind the tracks, but the biggest one is in between that area. So from the side, if you can hit in between the tracks and the hatch, there's a good chance you can damage the ammo rack, and that applies for both sides. Anyway, enough of me rambling on. Let's get into the games and see how it actually handles. So here we are for the first of the replays. It's a tier 8 match, it's wide park, and it's a standard battle. Now, I think I mentioned in the garage that you will get tracked a lot in this, which is why I'd recommend track mechanic and repairs on it. And something else you're going to have to get used to, unfortunately, is premium spam. Yep, people see these and seem to just spam the premium at you, because it's a tough tank. It has a reputation for being a tough tank, and it can get quite frustrating at times. Although, when you're side scraping, or if you're at a decent range, if you get caught out in the open, with the right angling, you can still bounce. But with this, even though it's very, very tough frontally, as with any other tank, I'd say, no matter what the armour is, I would say don't rely on it. And I know that sounds a bit daft, when you're thinking, well, I've got some really tough armour, but it's when you start relying on that armour to save you that it will probably let you down. Even in an E100, I'm not saying sit at the back sniping, because that's not what that tank's for, But like I say, you know, the moment you just start relying on your armour and thinking, oh, that'll block that, that's when it'll probably let you down and you get your arse handed to you. But don't play it, you know, I'm not saying play it like a pussy. Just, yeah, don't rely on it. It's the, you know, the best policy, really. But yeah, premium spam is an unfortunate side effect of having to, of driving the Black Prince. It does seem to happen quite a bit. Now this is me driving actually, and what I'm trying to do, I think, a bit more with the replays. I know in the past I've used like Ace Tanker replay, you know, where I've had really good games in it and that sort of thing. But, and you know, I don't mean to sound big-headed or anything. You know, I don't claim to be a unicorn player or anything like that. But I do know that not everybody can pull that sort of stuff off. I know I can't reliably. You know, obviously I can pull it off every now and again. I wouldn't say I can reliably do it. So I'm going to try in reviews from now on to use the more average rounds so that people can see not what it's capable of, you know, when everything comes together, that sort of thing, or in, you know, in the hands of a good player, but just what it's capable of in an average game, you know, sort of just average, like I say. Anyway, I'm working my way down the railway. I do like to come down this side, especially in something like the Black Prince, because you've got tight alleyways, you can hold them off, you can angle, there's places to side scrape, and the rate of fire does just tend to ruin things, even though you're not doing a great deal of damage per shot. And I mean, as you can see, I've not taken any damage yet. Taken a bit of track damage, but no actual damage on my tank. But I do, I think, take some in a minute. And that's down to, I think it's either poor angling or something gets to the side of me, I'm not sure which. There we go, no, it's arty. That's what hits me. And then that looked like HE, possibly, that somebody just fired at me. But I managed to take them out. And this is a fantastic tank for tracking people in as well. If you can get that tracking shot, you can actually keep them tracked, and you know, if you track them side onto you, you can just keep putting it through the front drive wheel. It goes through into the hull, and they've just got no chance of getting away because your rate of fire is so good. I'm going to push a bit further down. I didn't want to get in his way, so I just waited to see if he was going to fire. And I knew roughly where that T-43 was. Let's see if I can get him. Just keep moving. I mean, you're not going to ram anything to death in this, but I can still give him a nudge. I might knock his tracks off, possibly. Why not? Take that. Oh no, just knocked my own tracks off, but I did take his engine out, so yeah, he didn't go anywhere. Now the Hellcat's on his way. Oh, I managed to get a good hit in him. That was surprising, because he was moving and that was auto-aimed. Nope, he's done. Now, somebody also asked me in one of the comments, I haven't had a chance to reply yet, what I'm saying instead of AFK, and it's AFP, away from pad, as opposed to away from keyboard. Or, as I sometimes like to think of it, when people are seemingly AFP and in the middle of a match, you know, when they really should be doing something, is away fondling penis. That's what they're doing instead of playing the game. Now, T-34-85, and I wondered if with the new physics I could get over there and squash him, but unfortunately I couldn't. But I did try, and then I took a hit from the KV-4, so push round to try and get into a safer position, and I'm not quite sure where that one hit, to be honest, or what it was, whether it was HE, because I was on very low health, but it came through the window from the KV-4 and gave me a bit of a slap, and that was me done. When I came out of that match, it's a tier 8 match, came out of it with 2,244 damage done and nearly 1,600 blocked. Now, with the Black Prince, I came second with 3 kills, so yeah, not too bad. Tier 8 match, so happy with that. One of the things with the Black Prince, obviously, even though it does have a good rate of fire, with it having low damage is sometimes it can be tricky to actually do, you know, a large amount of damage. There are some tanks where it's easy to get, you know, 3,500 damage at tier 7. This is not so much one of those tanks. It's capable of it because the rate of fire is good. But obviously you've not only got to hit the tank, you've got to pen it as well. Whereas, you know, if you're just doing 300 per shot, say with a T29, you've got to hit it once. I've got to hit it and pen it twice to do that sort of damage, whereas that has to hit and pen once. So there are, you know, there are arguments for and against low damage, high DPM guns, just as there are for low rate of fire, high damage guns. You know, there's arguments for and against it. Now this one, tier 7 match, Great Wall, standard battle again. Again, this is me driving. This is, like I said, my wife's account though. And this one, again, I don't think it'll come top. It's a pretty average match for the Black Prince. It demonstrates how much of an arty magnet it can be and some of the issues that you can face in it. And I mean, it's a bit more unusual. You don't tend to get this many arty in a normal match. You don't see it as often anymore. I remember when I first started playing the game, it's quite common to get in matches with sort of 3, maybe 4 arty per team. Now, you know, 1 or 2 per team. It's unusual, I think, or it is for me anyway, with my experience, to get sort of 3 or 4 per team in a match. You don't see that as much. But I'm going to head up this way. I was going to go around the back, but a lot of people did. I was going to possibly go up to the hill in the northeastern corner, but a few people did. I didn't really want to go up there because I'm very, very slow, and I didn't particularly want to come up this way. But I thought I'd try something a bit different. I know I'm a bit slower, but I can get up there. And hopefully it should give me a good vantage point over the town without allowing things to shoot down into my weaker sort of top deck. And I'm going to go to town on this Tiger 131. I'm trying to track him, but unfortunately with the low damage, 1 hit is not normally enough to actually track them, and I think I gave his tracks 2 hits in total now, and he's still on, so although I could have missed with one of those. I'm going to ignore him for now. See if I can get some shots at these guys over there, which is possibly my mistake. Took a bit of a hit from RT, got my track broken, got my driver knocked out, which I have healed. A dead driver in one of these is horrible. A dead driver in a damaged engine is excruciatingly painful. Hopefully I can finish off that. Oh, it just bounced off his track, and RT's at me again. And this time my gunner's gone, and that's it. I'm just going to have to deal with a dead gunner now. But this is this kind of demonstrates the spawn liner argument for the for the equipment slot. As you can see, RT are paying me a lot of attention. They like to. I've got a big engine deck. If I was in RT, I would. But now, well, I'm not entirely sure what's happening inside my tank. It seems that the loader is the only one not injured, so, well, yeah, I feel sorry for him. The other 4 crew members are now bleeding out inside my hull. And the loader is having to, well, I don't know, he must be driving with 1 foot, loading with 1 hand, aiming with something else, and God knows what else. But that poor guy's on his own in there, struggling. Now the T-37's coming to have a go. But luckily, my frontal arm is good. I tried to give him a nudge, and in fact I did. I don't know if I shot him to finish him off there, or if it was the nudge I gave him that did it. But this, well, this match is just gone to hell in a handbasket, hasn't it, really? There's 3, at least, enemy tanks sweeping into our cap now, chasing, well, the remaining 3 of our RT down the western side, behind the big hill. And I'm hoping I'm going to get back in time, because, like I say, I've got a dead driver. The only thing that can make this worse is if my engine was damaged as well. Now, if you would like to see what one of these things is capable of, I did a random destruction a couple of weeks ago. In fact, if you search for the Black Prince, it should come up you know, search for Captain Beardface Black Prince, it possibly should come up. And I was helping my wife grind through it in on her account again, and there was a match that I did, and I think I got a Radley Walters in one of these, and possibly even my first Kolobanov's medal. Like my first ever, not just my first on my wife's account. I've never got one on my account, but I think I got one in that match on hers. So yeah, if you don't see what one of these things can be capable of, that's a fairly decent example. But like I say, these two are sort of more average matches. Now, managing to deal with this champion quite easily. That was a good example of how to angle it, and as you're moving towards an enemy like that, try and turn your hull in between the shots. So you basically zigzag towards them to increase your angling and keep it going. And like I say, try and swing your hull across in between their shots. It's almost like tacking in a sailboat. Now, this match was looking pretty bad about a minute or two ago. We had 3 enemy tanks sweeping into our base. Our RT were on the run, got taken out. And I'm in a very bad way, but we've managed to turn it around slightly. There's been some very good play from the remaining players that are left. And we're actually managing to turn it into our favour. So now all we've got is a medium and a light tank that are left. And I'm going to take this opportunity of me sort of dilly-dallying about a little bit, because I am incredibly slow. I'm not going to get to the enemy cap, I don't think. And I was just considering what to do, because the light tank popped up, but we didn't know where the medium was. And I had a horrible feeling that he might have managed to get around. There was only one heavy going the village side, so a medium could have snuck past him quite easily and got around. So I did have a horrible feeling that they were going to go for our cap, and I didn't want to get too far down the map to get back and have to, you know, reset cap, well, and not be able to get there in time, because there is no way I'd get down to the enemy cap to help cap out in time. You know, if they did start capping first, even though it's only one tank. We have got 2 down there, but the medium was quite far away, so that's why I turned around to just keep an eye on cap in case the medium popped up. But as it happened, he was down at the other end guarding his cap with the light tank, so it was completely unnecessary. I am having difficulty with English today, and I just hoped that he didn't take out our medium, because I don't think I'd be in a particularly good position to kill him. But as it turns out, he was done by our friendlies down in that corner. So there you go. Again, not a brilliant match, but it showed you some of the angling. It showed you the susceptibility to artillery, and it was just a pretty average match. But I did come out of it with a high caliber, just under 2,000 damage done, and managed to get the first mark of excellence on it. Only just though. But as you can see, the KV2 that was left, he had a good match. And the T-34-100 put up a good defence towards the end as well. There you go, the Black Prince. I hope it's helped you out if you're trying to grind through it and struggling. And if not, I hope you've just enjoyed it anyway. And I'll be back later on with another video. But until then, well, take care out there, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.